it will be really good and well worth it. Again, remember, we've only got the 100 people, so it'll be a first on, best dressed affair, and hopefully we'll sort out, we will sort it out because I've got to get on earlier for her next week, so it won't be as bad as waiting tonight. So I might, if guys can just mute your screens at the moment. If you've got questions for people, if you've got questions for Brian and Terry, put them in the chat. Do you want us to take the questions at the end, Brian and Terry?
Yeah, that's probably easier, I think, yeah.
No worries, I'll take questions at the end. I'll moderate for you and read them out. And I'll handball over to Terry and Brian. Thanks very much, guys. And just, yeah, if you can just...
We're good to go, Sarah?
No, she's muted. We've lost the audio from her. Okay, she's thumbs up.
Okay, all right. Yeah, my name is Terry Crisp, captain at Hotham Dinner Plane. Our third lieutenant, Brian McDermott, is holding the iPad. And as far as COVID compliance goes, we are housemates here at Hotham, so hopefully that will be okay. The other thing is that our internet connection is not perfect, but hopefully it'll get us through this well enough. So I thought we'd just run through a few things about the brigade first and where we're at, and then run through a few things that we have to do differently, being in an alpine environment. And then we'll get on and have a look at some of the specialist equipment that we have here, and then take some questions at the end. The Mount Hotham Dinner Plane Fire Brigade, we have a shed at Dinner Plane as well as a station here at Hotham. We're in the Hotham station at the moment. We have a total of 50 members, of which 30 are firefighters. We have 3 guests. We have 7 waiting to do their general firefighter qualification, which I think is up now. And we have 10 non-operational members. The guests are people that at Hotham quite a lot over winter, that are members of other brigades and turn out with us over the winter period, including a couple of MFP, FRV people as well at times. The appliances that we have here at Hotham, we've got a Hino medium pumper tanker, Isuzu medium tanker, an FCB, the pumper, 2 side-by-sides and 2 snowmobiles. We won't spend too much time with the pumper tanker and the tanker or the FCB. You've all seen those before. They're not specialist to Mount Hotham. So we'll be spending our time mostly with the pumper, the side-by-sides and snowmobiles to show you what's going on with those. The pumper's actually 20 years old and it's due for replacement. It was to be at the end of this ski season. We were going to get a bit of a test run on it, but COVID has thrown a spanner in the works and we're not sure whether we'll see that at the end of this season or the beginning of next season. We'll just have to see how that one goes. So this will be the swan song for the pumper that we've got now, and I think it must be close to 20 years old. Before we just go and have a look at them, just to run through some of the sort of practical difficulties we have here with turning out. Mount Hotham is kind of a long, narrow village for those people that have been here before. It's not, a centrally located village. So we can have members that are quite some distance from the fire station. It's pretty easy to be a kilometre away. In the evenings, we have an intermittent bus service. So you can't rely on getting a bus. There are no vehicles allowed in the village itself. And certainly up to 1 AM, there are no buses at all. So if we're to get a call out at 2 in the morning for an MVA or a structure fire, it's a matter of running to the fire station, which really wasn't that satisfactory as someone who used to do a bit of the running here. You can be, ankle to knee deep in snow in freezing temperatures running to get to the fire station. So CFA were good enough to provide us with a couple of side-by-sides and for crew transport to the station and to get on scene, and also the snowmobiles, which the second side-by-side and the snowmobiles are placed in strategic places around the village, depending on where our members are. So perhaps we'll pop through, we'll have a walk through the station and then we'll go into the motor room.
Okay.
So we were sitting in the crew room. We have a residence upstairs, so stairs up to the residence. Coming through, we've got a radio room in here. I guess this is pretty common to most people's stations. Just before we get sort of onto the operations, obviously everyone's training has been very different this year. Normally we would train at 18:30 hours on a Monday at Hotham, and pretty much whatever the weather may be, everything cold, blizzard, well, it's always one of the two. But we figure that there's no point calling training off for bad weather, because they're the conditions that we may have to operate in. So if you're going to learn how to use your equipment and how to go about things, you might as well do it in things that are potentially operating conditions. We've changed to Zoom trainings at the moment, that I suspect a lot of brigades are doing as a way of trying to maintain some level of skills and engagement with our members. One of the things we do face with training here on very cold nights, and certainly a few degrees below zero is very common, and I suspect that's what it is outside at the moment. But it can get down to -7 and 8, which we've had recently. Some of the hazards that we face with training are mostly related around slips and falls due to ice. As you can imagine, it's not a proper fire truck unless there's a bit of water going everywhere out of the back end of it. And it doesn't take long on a frozen road for that water to become ice. Actually, try to follow me around here, Brian. So one of the things that we purchase for our brigade that allows us to work in those sorts of environments are basically boot chains. And we've purchased those for the structure boots for everyone in the brigade to wear, and we encourage them to wear it as a way of mitigating some of the risk that we go through. Just from an operations point of view, we're actually a bit different than most alpine brigades, in that Hotham itself is not an end of road destination. We have the Great Alpine Road that passes through Mount Hotham between Wangaratta and Bairnsdale. We also have two towns in our patch, Hotham and Dinner Plain, and we also have a commercial airport. The airport is, the Hotham and Dinner Plain are about 10 kilometres apart, and the airport is another 10 kilometres further on from that. What we might do is we might open the door and just have a quick look outside. That lowered the temperature a bit.
Yes, it's cold.
Okay, something that I guess may not be familiar to most of you would be the chains on the pump and tanker. And we tend to put the chains on as it starts to snow or get icy, in that it's a lot easier to drop chains off if we don't need them to spend the time putting them on. A couple of other things while we're out here. I'd just like to point out what's a fairly typical hydrant for us in Hotham and Dinner Plain. Most of our hydrants are standpipes. We do have some ground balls, have about 3 here, I think, at Hotham, and we have a number at Dinner Plain. Why anyone would build a ground ball in an area that can get snow is beyond me. And it would be nice to be able to change them over, but some of the ones at Dinner Plain are literally in the middle of a driveway, which is, again, not sure why you would do that. This one's a fairly short one because it's basically undercover from the station. They're up to 2 metres tall around the resort, but they still need a bit of digging every now and again to expose them after a lot of snowfall, especially if they're in a wind drift area. What they have is they have an internal rod that goes all the way to the bottom, and they have a dump valve at the bottom. So as you turn the hydrant off, it opens a valve at the bottom that is on the hydrant side of the main line, so the water in the pipe gets released. So otherwise it would just freeze into a solid ice block for us. One other thing that we might just have a quick look at while we've got the door open.
Sorry, Terry, what kind of pressure do you have in your hydrants?
800 kPa.
Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah, it's not so much a pressure thing here as a flow thing. Up the main end of the resort, it's quite good, but by the time you get down to the very end of the resort, you can have quite high pressures, but you can't maintain much of a flow with it. While we're out here, if Brian can just get a bit of a picture there, this is a bit of an example of some of the hazards that we can face, and CFA has done this as well. What we're looking at here is the gas meter, and this gas meter in a normal season, this gas meter will often be covered with snow. It'll be that high because of the roof above, and the roof above is shedding snow down that builds up here. And this is something we find very commonly at Hotham and Dinner Plain. We might pop back inside.
Yep.
And I'll just have a quick chat. And because of the climatic conditions we get here, it's not really like Europe where, you know, it will be well below zero, you know, at all times of the day and night. At Hotham here, we often get a freeze-thaw situation going on, so that the snow that may fall on the roof then thaws a bit. And in the end, you don't end up with nice fluffy snow falling off the roof. You end up with a block of ice that will slowly make its way off. It's one of the risks that we have here in that they put power boxes and gas meters under areas of roof shed. There'd be nothing worse than getting hit by a 20-kilo block of ice. And of course, if you've got a house fire, the house is getting warmer, it's more likely to shed anyway. So that's one of the things that we deal with here. The houses also tend to be built fairly airtight here at Hotham. I'll close that door. Yeah, bear with us for a moment. We're just going to close the fridge door.
It's been snowing for most of the day. It's probably about -2, -3 degrees outside. So the motor room's actually heated. The floor in the motor room's about 18 degrees. So it's quite warm in here. Anyway, back to Terry.
So the houses tend to be built quite airtight here, which is something that we train for a bit as well. The couple of fires that we've been to in houses here, sometimes the only reason it's not going harder is a lack of oxygen. So we need to be very mindful about opening doors and windows and things, because that's just providing a component for the fire. The other thing, maintaining key and code access for the 40-odd lodges that we have here can be problematic, and largely Brian has been through that process over the last few weeks. I guess we can always get into a building if we have to, but it's much better if we have access to that. And the thing is that when we're training and when we're out on a call, I guess most people, the issues that you deal with your firefighters in structure PPC is getting too hot. I mean, they're pretty warm to be in, but if you've been standing out there by the side of the road for an hour in -5 and a 30-kilometre-an-hour wind, we need to be very mindful of our firefighters getting too cold while they're on the job. Again, a risk that we need to mitigate here by being aware of it. Also with the lodges, we go through a lodge wardens training program every year. We didn't this year due to COVID, where we have a breakfast and give a talk to them all. Some of the issues, you know, lodges can have, if it's a 30-bed lodge, if there are young people in there, then there may indeed be more than 30 people sleeping there at any one time. It's about as delicately as I can put it, and some of them may be a little intoxicated to hear a fire alarm. So we need to be mindful of those things in the environment that we operate in as well. And also something that we have had this year that we haven't had so much in years gone by, and it's because the lift operations have shut down and there's not that many people here at the moment, is that buildings are freezing. Normally they'd be occupied, there'd be heaters on, but people have locked up their lodges and their rooms and headed off the hill, and all sorts of things start to freeze. The usual pipes, we've had 2 lodges with burst pipes in them. One, we only realised what was happening because it happened upstairs and the water went through the ceiling into a smoke detector and the alarm went off. And it turns out that the small glass the small glass breakable vials in sprinkler systems that break at a predetermined heat in a fire also break when they freeze. And if the building starts to thaw out after a few days, when we get a warmer day, the sprinkler system activates. And that's happened to us once up in one of the main residential buildings here this winter. Part of what we do up here is we do get a number of MVAs, of motor vehicle accidents. It's not a primary function, I guess, but the mantle seems to fall on our shoulders at times. SES will need to come from Bright or Swifts Creek to get to Hotham, and that's a good 2 hours away. And that's indeed if they can get here. Motor vehicle accidents have a habit of happening in atrocious weather conditions, and it may be that they are unable to get here at all. So we have had a number of MVAs that we've needed to attend and to deal with. And also from a CFA backup point of view, Hotham is backed up by Harrietville and Dinner Plain by Omeo, and they're 60 to 90 minutes away. So if we look at what remote might be, in terms of kilometres from assistance from CFA, we're certainly not remote. But if you look at the time it takes to get an appliance on scene from another brigade, and sometimes in bad weather conditions, is that even possible, then we need to regard ourselves as remote and perform standalone as best we can. Just one other thing before we start, or a couple of other quick things. We have a commercial airport in our patch, which forms a significant risk profile for us. It hasn't been very active commercially over the last couple of years since Qantas pulled the pin, but there are a number of smaller commercial flights that still come in and out from Melbourne and private aircraft. It's 20 kilometres from Hotham, 10 from Dinner Plain, and still at an altitude of 1,400 metres. So it can get snow there, but it doesn't linger very long. And we have a multi-agency exercise every year with that, and we alternate one live exercise at the airport, and the following year we do a desktop exercise. We were due to have a live exercise this year, but that's not happening. One other just brief aside is that it's something that I'm not sure it impacts us directly, but obliquely perhaps. After the bushfires, most of the lodges up here are having a lot of trouble getting insurance. It seems as if, as far as I've heard, there's only one insurance company that will insure lodges at Hotham at the moment, and I'm not sure what their appetite would be to insure the whole lot. In case a lot was lost, I guess they'd have a lot of eggs in one basket. So that's been of an issue for us. What we'll do is we'll have a look around the appliances. These are things you probably haven't seen, or certainly won't have in your brigade. We have 2 snowmobiles, one downstairs and one is housed upstairs, and we'll go and have a look at that in a minute. This one is usually parked down in the resort where there are a couple of members who turn out for their use to get to the fire station. They can also be used to get people from the fire station to the scene, particularly if we need more bodies at the scene. And at the moment, with just 4 in a truck and 2 in a side-by-side, having extra transport's a very welcome thing. Other than that, it's pretty much a standard snowmobile. It hasn't had much of a run this year because we haven't had much snow. We'll move on to the side-by-side. So we've had these a few years now. The other side-by-side is in its raw form. So it's basically a 5-person twin cab on tracks. The tracks can be tracks or wheels on tracks. This one was set up as a response and has been very, very handy for us in several different aspects of doing that. First of all, the first 2 firefighters on scene can head off and do a size up and create the control point, etc. in this vehicle. Gets 2 more people on scene, and it's the quickest one there. Second of all, on an MVA about a month ago, there were really, really atrocious road conditions in being slippery, and we had to stop and eventually put chains on the truck, whereas the side-by-side was able to get on scene without any difficulties at all. We might do...
Do you want to open the door?
Okay, open the front door. So the setup inside the vehicle, because it's rather noisy, we have headphones, aircraft type headphones that allow us to talk to each other and allows us to hear Firecom, but we still need to push to talk on the microphone to talk to Firecom. There is a thermal imaging camera charging station and holder in the back. The camera is at the moment, because this unfortunately has to sit outside, our station's not big enough, we keep the camera inside until we need to go somewhere with it. So nominally holds 3 people because of the extra room taken up in the back with the thermal imaging camera. So the rear of the vehicle, that's a vehicle cover. We have 3 dry chem powder fire extinguishers in the back. Here we have a quick attack pack and a hose lay for some of the larger lodges that are around here. A rako, shovel, Halligan tool and an axe. Why a rako, you may ask? Well, it seems as if they are quite effective at raking snow as well as you know, doing fire breaks on mineral earth lines in the summer. And certainly to times we need to do that around ground balls and things like that. Around to the other side, we have facility for 2 BA cylinders, spare BA cylinders, and also 2 fire blankets there. The Brigade has 8 BA cylinders in all, and in winter configuration we keep 2 on the tanker at dinner plane, 2 on the side-by-side, 2 on the pumper tanker and 2 on the tanker. We obviously reconfigure that in the summer, in that there's not much point having any on the pumper or the side-by-side. Okay, we'll perhaps move around to the pumper. And I'm not sure if Steve O'Shea's watching this or not, so I'll just be careful what I say. The vehicle is quite old technology, and my understanding is that it does not have a centre differential or a differential between the 2 tracks, so that the only way that it can turn is by a track slipping. So it really is deadly if you take it out on a dry bitumen road. We just simply don't do that. It's not so bad on a wet road, but once it gets snow on the road, it performs very well. It's what it was designed to do. Operationally, of course, if you've got to take it out on a dry road, so be it. If it breaks, then Steve O'Shea comes and fixes it. But this will be our last season, although we may keep this for next season to double up with the new one in case there are some teething problems with the new one. But look, very effective over snow piece of equipment. And, you know, it would be hard to imagine us to be able to conduct a reasonable fire response in Hotham without some sort of oversnow pumper to do that. It's purely a pumper. It has no facility to carry water. Again, perhaps the usual setups, you know, once you get down to it, BA cylinders, first aid, we've got mop buckets and things like that, and a ration pack. I'm not really sure what for. Some collapsible triangles, resus pack, quick attack pack. In the back, we've got some spare hoses on the top. We have flake 64 with a Protect, a flake 38 with a Protect. Over winter, we tend to preferentially run Duraline rather than canvas, simply because it's easier to dry. With the other appliances, the tanker and the pumper tanker, over summer we'll change a lot over to canvas. It's easier to work with. To come around to the back. Open up at the back. Again, we have a 64 flaked hose, so that if we're going past a hydrant, just grab it out and connect to the hydrant. Same on this side. With our water flow and the capacity of this machine, it is best if you can run 2 64s in, just to get rid of some of the friction loss if we've got slightly along the way to get there.
What's the pump capacity, Terry?
It'll.
Good question, Brian.
Well, yeah, strange you should ask that. 4,000 litres a minute out of this, and there are places in the resort when we could utilise that capacity, and some places that we can't, just from what's available in the supply. It's a, sorry, I should mention it's a PTO driven pump, and still seems to function quite well if any brigade feels they need one. Moving around to the side, we have a ladder on the roof. We have drafting facility, drafting hoses on the roof as well. Not that I could foresee a situation that we would need to draft in this, in that the resort has a reticulated supply all through the resort and nowhere to draft from. And at a top speed of about 20 kilometres an hour, it's not going very far, very fast. Again, we've got a Cleveland lay. We've got a 38 canvas hose on this side with a Protec and another 64 with a Protec on it. To move through, you would see that the facility for laying across the road with a 64, in that is a situation that we may have here at Hotham if we got a fire in the wrong place and no hydrant there, which is possible here. Positive ventilation fan, positive pressure ventilation fan. Basically our Y pieces, which we would use for dividing and collecting out of a single hydrant if we wanted to run twin hoses. I've never actually used either of those two branches, so I can't really talk much about that. Over on this side, just simply a shovel and a Halligan tool. And just a mop bucket and, again, brake hose and various attachments and sealing hooks. Around on this side, we have a few more tools that would be familiar to most people on most fire trucks, I would imagine, not just specific to this one. There are lots of issues with this that I guess were taken so much notice of 20 years ago. You know, a lot of the heavier stuff is up high, and you know, ergonomically now with OH&S, I'm sure that wouldn't fly. And Joel Reed has been heading the design and manufacture of the new one, and Joel's put a lot of time and effort into, you know, getting things ergonomically set up. So we're looking forward to the new one. And through here, just a foam and a dry chem fire extinguisher. If you were to pop this way, Brian, we will just show you the controls just from this side. Basically, it's pretty much like a bulldozer. You sit in and you steer by breaking one track or the other. Perhaps, Brian, if you want to pop around the other side, and I'll pop in here. So again, we have a crew of 4 in this appliance, and again, it's a very noisy piece of equipment to drive in. So we have the same intercom setup that we have on the other one. Other than that, as far as, you know, beacons and lights, and you know, it's a similar piece of equipment. Automatic gearbox, all seems to be quite functional and work quite well. We've never really had any issues with that part of the setup on the appliance. Now we might perhaps just have a quick run upstairs. Yep. At the launching pad. Yep. Because we've had a couple of power failures here over the campaigns in summer, we have a standalone generator to run the station as an LCF. This is the second snowmobile, and the way we get that out, as Steve O'Shea puts it, is the launching ramp. So it's down and out. Normally there's a bit more snow than that. You just have to be careful where you point the skids going out here at the moment, but it's doable if we needed to. Okay, we'll pop back downstairs. Okay. So that pretty much is the tour of the station and how we go about things here in the snow. And obviously it's of most people, interest to most people how we conduct the alpine operations, but fairly significant part of our brigade activities are also summer fires, as was everyone's this last summer. But we were impacted somewhat around Dinner Plain and the airport over this last summer as well. So, you know, that went on for, 3 or 4 weeks for us, as it went longer than that for other people as well. So that kind of does it. So I might hand back to Sarah at the moment, and if anyone has any questions, we'll do our best to answer them.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. And just to let you know that we actually have one of your other lieutenants online. Scott Ryan is online and answered 1 or 2 questions. So thanks, Scott, for that. Everyone's got some random. Scott normally works up at the snow, but isn't working up there at the moment. He's in Melbourne, so.
Yes, true. And unfortunately, Scott will know what I don't know.
Well, he can jump on if you want him to fill in, but he's answered a couple of questions.
All right.
So in regards to couplings and emergency services up at Hotham, etc. How do you operate do you operate any differently during the summer months? So how do you operate differently between summer and winter?
Summer we would be pretty much like any other CFA brigade, rural brigade, although we're an urban brigade, in that, we have a bushfire tanker and we have the pumper tanker. So we have the 2 appliances and, we respond in our CFA patch. We're in the middle of a lot of Delp and Parks territory here. So it's not up to us to be going off into the bush and fighting the fires rather than letting them come to us and protecting life and property at Hotham. But I suspect over summer, our day-to-day activity is probably not a great deal different. We do have more members here over winter than summer, but we have been building the capacity of people here that are over summer. And certainly over this last campaign, we were able to turn out, consistently about 8 people or 6 to 8 people from the local area. I was up here for 4 weeks, and as was Brian for a number of weeks, and various other of our members came and went as they were able to over that period of time.
The main activity we have in the summer generally is just fire alarms in the village. So it's basically get the key, go and investigate, reset the alarm, or clean the alarm if you can. Yeah, other than this recent fire season, it's generally fairly quiet.
And how many calls do you normally get a year, summer/winter?
Usually we're at about that sort of 30 calls a year.
Yeah, it's about 18 to 20 in the winter, and probably 10 to 12 during the summer, I'd say. Yep.
Rowan's asked, have you been given access to the CFA Alpine Service Delivery Strategic Plan for 2009 to 2024?
Yes.
And did the fire insurance increase 300 to 500% as it has in Falls Creek over the last fire season?
No, I would have to answer to that. Do you mean just from this last fire season, Sarah?
I believe so, yes.
I've only spoken to one lodge, or they were able to continue with their insurance, but their insurance went up 50 or 60%. So we're not talking hundreds of percent. That was 50 or 60%.
And a number of the lodges a number of the lodges are unable to get insurance at the moment. Anything that's underwritten by Lloyd's, they're making it very difficult.
We've had a couple of questions about storts, and I did see Steve pop up, but I'll probably can mention that as well as you can, that most older vehicles in regional areas don't have storts yet, and as vehicles getting replaced, they're quite often going to storts fittings in and around regional Victoria.
Correct, and our pumper will be the same. At the moment, we're all 3-thread 60, 64 mil. We will have storts fittings, so that we'll need adapters for those. And what we've been thinking of in the brigade is to go around and basically have a storts fit, change all the hydrants to a storts fitting, and then the appropriate adapters on the truck. Whichever way we do it, but yes, the new pumper for us will have storts on it, I believe.
Yeah, it's an issue regional wide, or statewide in the regional areas. We have issues with new trucks and old trucks, etc. down here in Bairnsdale, between Bairnsdale and Lakes, etc. So it's always a fun one we've got.
Sarah, my understanding was when the new pumper comes, the other trucks are going to get changed over to storts.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott. I was thinking we'd end up with adapters, but if they will change the trucks, then we'll get the hydrants changed as well.
I've got a little project to go around and work out how many fittings we need for the hydrants. I know when all the hydrants are, so maybe we can get the local council to chip in.
Would be nice. Peter asked about problems with frozen water supply, and Scott did reply that as long as you've got water flowing, the temps aren't cold enough to freeze it, and
correct.
Your mains dump the hydrants. I had a question.
Yeah.
Drying hoses over winter.
Yeah. We try and avoid using canvas hoses over winter. First of all, we use Duraline, so there's no need to dry them. But we do, the stairs we walked up to the top room, we have hooks on the wall there that we can string canvas hose up through there if we need to.
That's very good, because yes, I can't imagine hanging them on a hose tower and draining and freezing.
Sarah, all our canvas hose is rubber lined, so technically we don't have to dry it anyway.
Oh,
technically.
Technically, yeah. I don't feel right about wet hose, but anyway, there you go.
I'm with you there. Any other questions, people? So you don't live full-time on the mountain, Terry and Brian?
No, I'm here over winter, and I try to get here as much as I can over summer. Certainly I was here for the 4 weeks of the campaign in January, but only at times other than that, no. So I'm not based here. Brian is based in Melbourne, was here for the campaign as well. And also Brian will be coming up a bit more in summer to take training and stuff for the summer crew. But no, so no, not here full time.
Yep.
And are you members?
I also don't.
Are you members in other brigades in Melbourne or?
Yes, I am. I'm a member at Edithvale.
Thanks, Brian.
And the answer for me is no, in that we spent the last 2 summers in Adelaide, in South Australia. So I haven't joined a brigade there. And I'm not even sure I'll get back to South Australia. So I could be here over some of the way the border restrictions are
going. Next question. How and where do you fuel up the appliances?
We fuel the appliances from a Bowser that is used by the Resort Management Board, and so it is always pre-mixed antifreeze diesel.
How often do you train in past years, excluding COVID?
We train every Monday night.
So how many members live there full time, and do you still have a member from FRV over winter, which I don't think you do this winter because the state area is closed?
We have had a commander from CFA here for 15, 20 years. We had one at the beginning of this year who moved over to FRV. So at the moment we don't have support from an FRV commander here. And I'm not sure if that will be reinstated next year or not. Sorry, was there another part of your question, Sarah?
No, that was just how many members live up at Hotham full time?
I'm going to take a guess and say 8.
I would have said a dozen.
Oh, okay.
More than a dozen, yeah.
Oh, actually, if you count the people that are in the pipeline that are members that haven't gone through their general firefighter, yes, yeah, we'd be up at least
over a dozen,
maybe
yeah.
more, yeah.
Our recruiting at the moment is focusing on trying to get local people. We're moving away from seasonal firefighters. That's unless we get someone that's who's qualified. We'll welcome them with open arms for the winter.
What is your population up there generally over summer?
Not many, I would say probably around about 50-ish at Hotham and maybe 100, 150 at Dinner Plain.
Yep.
And normally...
just to give you, so in the winter, in Hotham Village, we'd have 5,500 to 6,000.
And then Dinner Plain.
And then plus Dinner Plain, which would be 1,000 to 1,500.
Yeah, be good 1,500. There's 330, 340 homes there, plus some commercial establishments, and those houses tend to be rented by families. So yeah, there'd be 1,500 down there. So yeah, we go from almost nothing to very busy.
Question: is firefighter fatigue more of a problem in the freezing conditions, and if so, how do you deal with it?
Look, yes, I guess it. Well, is it more of an issue, as opposed to having somebody out on a 40-degree day fighting a fire? Well, fatigue's an issue there. Yes, it is an issue here, but I wouldn't saw it so much fatigue as cold. As people start to get cold, they're unable to, use their hands as well. Maybe their reactions are not as quick as they could be, if people start shivering. So it's more a matter of cold than fatigue. We've not ever had a case of hypothermia amongst our crew, and I would hope we manage our situation better than to allow that to arise, but it's more cold than fatigue.
Yeah. The other challenge you can have is if you are out spraying water and it is below zero, the spray will freeze on your visor. So there can be some challenges like that.
Definitely some challenges. And Dinner Plain's a satellite station?
Correct.
Correct, yep.
And your residence is for people like you to live in, I'm guessing?
Yeah, up until this season, that's where the commander from CFA was to live. They decided they would house him off premises this year. So the residence became available, and so the district just chose, more people applied to be able to live there, and the district chose that on qualifications, etc., of people to be there. So it's been a bit of an experiment to have firefighters living on station or volunteers on station this year. But it's improved our turnout times and our response, as you would well imagine. So I think it's probably been a success at this stage, and I would expect that would probably continue. Excellent,
good to hear. And how do you feel living on station? Is it a bit weird?
No, not really. It's been fine. There were 5 of us here. There are 3 bedrooms, so 2 married couples, and that basically, if you've got a couple in a bedroom who are both firefighters, then that gives you 2 firefighters per bedroom. And we had Scott Ryan here earlier in the season, but Scott's now gone, so we're down to 4 instead of 5 in the house. That's fine. I haven't had any issues. I think Brian wants to hit me every now and again, but that's all right.
Snoring? No.
That's always a fun one. And I think that is most of the questions we've got asked. Oh, do you need special licenses to drive the vehicles in the snow?
No. Well, obviously you need a medium rigid for the tanker and the pumper tanker. You only need a car license for the snowmobile and the side-by-side. But there is a certification process that people go through with me as captain in being trained to drive those, and the same goes for the pumper. There's a process to go through to become authorised to drive that equipment. So it's not a Vic Roads special licence per se, rather a requirement of the resort and of the brigade.
Excellent. I can't see any other questions there, so I'd like to thank you two very much, and then Scott for remotely putting in very much for your time tonight. Much appreciated, and I think it gives everyone a view of things we have, things we do differently, and the implications you have up in your cold weather and snow, and how diverse CFA really is. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. I hope it's been good. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful. Thanks very much. Thank you to everyone around, and hope to see you. Oh, we've had a couple of people put hands for you. So yeah, thanks very much, and we hope to see most of you next week with Martina Jewell. I'll post some videos up in regards to Martina over the coming week. But yes, it should be a really good next week as well. So I'm just trying to take Brian off spotlight, off the video.
Good.
Fun.
Here we go. Oh,
Okay.
we're done. Well, I can just get
Here we
camera
go.
off. Here we go.
I've cancelled him off spotlight video now. So yeah, next week, Martina Jewell, I'll put some videos up during the week. It should be excellent. I'm happy for you to share the link around Brigade's members, but just remember we've got only 100 spots. So that's important as well. And we've got some other good speakers coming up as well. So have a safe week, everyone, and we'll see you next week.